Hello and welcome back. It's puzzle time with Sudoku Sleuth, and today we're continuing our phenomenal series Equality Cages, Chinese Philosophy. And you can see from the top there, 115. It's amazing that this series has already had over 15 in them. And they're still absolutely enjoyable, so I mean, credit to the constructor, gUBBLOR, for just being persistent and continuing to find exceptional fusions of the two. And fusions is what we're playing today. If you haven't already guessed it, today is all about the Yin and Yang rule set. We played one not too long ago, and I think I really kind of made a bit of a mess of it that I ended up posting yet another video on Patreon where I replayed the same puzzle, but really paid a lot more attention to the rule set and trying to make sure that I sort of master it if I can. You can check out that video on Patreon if you're one of the channel supporters, of course. But here's another attempt to, here's another chance, I should say, to publicly demonstrate this rule set. So fingers crossed this will be another excellent solve. On to today's puzzle. Well, I should mention, obviously in the thumbnail, you've got Sleuth there finding inner peace as he meditates in this beautiful scenery. I should have actually commented about that because, you know, when Mrs. Sleuth and we were living in China, we actually visited a few of their temples, and they are pretty much as you see in the movies, picturesque, beautiful pavilions by the lakes, such as this one, up high in the mountains. They are absolutely phenomenal, and you should certainly visit it if you can. Right, on to the puzzle. So, I'm gonna immediately state, I'm not expecting anyone to be able to read it. Of course, the rule sets are in the description down below as usual. But I will walk you through them because I think they can be a little bit confusing. So there's really only, well, okay, there's a few rule sets because we've got Kropki dots in X, but really it's about equality cages and yin and yang. So let's start off. Normal Sudoku rules apply. That means place the digits 1 to 9 once each in every row, in every column, and every 3 by 3 box. This is why we're all here. Then equality cages. So cages must have an equal number of low, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, and high, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me just pick at random, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, 7, 8, 9. But they also have to have an equal number of evens and odds. So imagine that this was a odd digit, therefore this would have to be an even digit. And that would be a perfectly suitable pencil mark for this particular cage. To avoid any ambiguity, equality cages never contain a 5, so you really only have 4 possible low digits, 4 possible high digits, 4 possible odd digits, 4 possible even digits. Then we have Kropki dots. A black dot between cells indicates cells with a value of 2 to 1 ratio. So if this, for example, was a 2, this could be 1 or 4. That would be an appropriate pencil mark for a black dot. We also have a white dot. I can see one of them down here. If that was a 2, this would have to be 1 or 3 for them to be consecutive. Not all dots are shown, so this 2 could be adjacent to a 4 here, and it could be adjacent to a 3. Doesn't require a white dot, doesn't require a black dot. We have, of course, our XV rule set. You can see that there is one of them in here. If that was a 2, this cell would have to be an 8 to make sure that on aggregate these two cells add up to 10. Obviously, any other combination would work. It doesn't have to be 2 and 8. This could be 3, this could be 7. That would also be just fine. Not all X's and V's are shown. We also have a V, pardon me. These two cells must add up to 5. If that was a 2, this would have to be a 3. And again, because not all of them are shown, this 2 could have an 8 in here without an X. This 3 could have a 2 next to it, or actually, yeah, and without a V. That's also fine under today's rule set. Then we have our yin and yang rule set and an explanation of what all of these diamonds mean. Now, I am going to sort of paraphrase the rules a bit because I think it just makes it a little bit clearer. Essentially, think of this grid as covered in red and green, 2 different colors. Now, each color, let me use the precise language here. They must form a single orthogonally connected region. So this green, for example, whatever it is, you can't have islands of green. it has to be orthogonally connected. What I can't do, for example, is assume that a green in here is connected diagonally. That doesn't work. The other rule set is I can't have any 2x2 region being the same color. That can't be fully green. Lastly, I cannot have an isolated cell. Green with all of it being red doesn't work. That's no longer fully connected. That breaks. Now the rule applies for both greens and reds. And the green diamonds are green and the red diamonds are red. So that helps you start with the coloring process. Last thing about these diamonds, and I'm going to just clear up things a bit, is that they tell you how many of the opposite color there is in the surrounding 8 cells. So not including themselves, so the maximum any diamond can have is 8, because it tells you how many of the surrounding 8 cells are actually of the opposite color. So the fact that this, for example, is a 2 means that at most there are 2 green cells and everything else is red around it. This 8 in here means that it is fully isolated, so all of these now have to be red. And you can see that immediately breaks many rule sets, including the fact that this green is isolated. So, if you're not intimidated by this, if you want to meditate on Chinese philosophy and play this puzzle kind of refreshed and ready, link will be in the description down below as usual for you to play along. And with that said, I'm going to restart the clock and see how I get on. Wish me luck. So, a few rules about yin and yang. One is that there can only ever be 2 strips of color around the edges. And by that I mean, if I put a green in the middle between these 2 red diamonds, and I know that these 2 green diamonds are clearly green, I've already got multiple segments of colors. I've got green here, then red, then green again, then red again. And the challenge that you have is, how do you connect this green or this red to the rest of it without isolating one of the groups? And the answer is it's impossible. As soon as you connect this green to its counterpart, this red is isolated. Same is true the other way around. As soon as you connect this red, and this is sort of a little bit more obvious, to that red, this green is isolated. So whenever you end up with a yin and yang puzzle that has already places for you to start, you can immediately connect them if they're the same color. That's a start. We also know no 2x2s, although in this case gUBBLOR was generous enough to give us what these are. They are clearly red and they are clearly green. I also know these are low digits to add up to 5. I also know that this is a 3-6. Kind of the nature of the equality cages means that you need a low and a high. So from all the black Kropki dots, it's either 3-6 or 4-8 to satisfy that low and high example. But you need one odd and one even, and only one of those qualify. So whenever you see a pair of digits with a black Kropki dot in an equality cage, you know that they're a 3-6 pair. Right, let's start thinking about what we have here. So I'm fairly sure this is the high digit, and I explain that by thinking, well, that's 4 green digits that this cell can see. So essentially, the only way this remains the low digit would be if it's a 4 and everything else around it is red. And you can see that immediately breaks the 2x2 nature of the yin and yang rule set. So the answer is, this is the high digit. So this is 6 or 8, because it's on a black Kropki dot. And we've already established that an 8 can never be on a diamond because it means everything around it is green, and I've broken the fact that this is now isolated. So that's a very quick way of saying this is 6, this is 3, this is 2, and we're off and running with digits in under 3 minutes. Now I also need, I've got 4, I need 6 green digits. And this is the second pattern in yin and yang. You can never have a checkerboard pattern such as this. And the reason for that, you can immediately see, it's sort of demonstrated here, self-evident, that the red cell here becomes isolated. But you end up with the same sort of challenge. If you're trying to connect the greens, you're going to isolate the reds, such as this too. If you connect the reds, you would isolate one of the greens. So checkerboard patterns are never allowed. So one of these is going to be green, one of these is going to be red. And I know that there has to be a green one because if they're both red, that's a 2 by 2, that's not allowed. So there has to be a green, and they both can't be because of the checkerboard rule. So that means this is green, because I need 5 greens plus 1 more of these 2. And whichever one it is, because obviously I should have just done that quickly now. All of these are green. Oh, that's not what I meant to say. All of these are red. Because this already sees 1 green, and there's a second one in here, these have to be red. This has to be red, because the second green is one of these 2. 2 in an equality cage can only pair up with a 7. My options are 7 and 9, because it has to be a high odd digit, given I have a low even digit. Can't put a 9 on a diamond, can't put an 8 on a diamond. So it is 7, and already it tells me that, how am I going to sort of explain this one? A 7 can still work in yin and yang, providing that this 7 escapes and connects to other greens. So it's not isolated. So of course, the diagonals, because they don't count as a connection, have to be red. Otherwise, that would be the single green that is sort of reducing the count of reds to 7. And therefore, this has to be the only green amongst this sea of red. Hopefully that's clear. I'm all sort of, sometimes when I look at these diamonds, I sort of reverse the count. I know that the maximum is 8. And because it's 7, therefore it can only have 1 green cell. That 1 green cell is what's connecting it to the rest of the world. And the diagonal just wouldn't do. That's not considered connected. Can't isolate the green. That's got to be green. That's got to be now green to meet that 2 diamond rule. This is going reasonably well. Here is something. That is already seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red cells. If I make this cell red, that would be a 6, which is already in the box. So that doesn't work. That has to be green. This has to be 5. And we can continue. This cell here, you can see that could be either 3 or 4, depending on how the red swings, whether it closes things off here or whether it continues. Now, if it's a 3, that's a problem, because it's a black Kropki dot, and that would be a 6, and that would double the 6 in here. So this has to be 4, meaning it's sealed off. And that's really good for us for one simple reason. We now know that this green section has to continue to reach other greens. It could be as simple as this, but it almost doesn't matter. We know that this can't be isolated, and we know now that we have this band of red. It needs to continue all the way. This has to be green, otherwise it'll be a 2 by 2. This is now either 1 or 2, because it can have potentially a green cell in here or a red cell in here. We don't know what. But that's the low digit. This is the high digit. And we've said earlier on the diamonds, they're either 6 or 7 when it comes to high digits. It can't be 8 or 9. 8 would isolate it. 9 is impossible because it can only see 8 neighbors. So, because it's not a 6, it is in fact a 7, and therefore that is a 2. That has to be an even digit to counter that odd digit that we have here. So that is another green. Can't be 2 by 2. That's a red. This is a 7, of course, so this has to be red. Can't isolate this green section. That needs to escape through here. Can't be a 2 by 2 in there. That needs to be green again. This here is 1 or 2, because it's the maximum number of green cells it can see. Of course, you could have 3 in there, but that's unlikely because we've got a 3-6 pair. Another 2 by 2 in here. Right. Time to think a bit more again. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 neighboring greens. That's a 5. This is a 1. What is, yeah, this is the cell that's going to help us make progress. So it can already see 4 reds. Yeah, it's the same thing that we had with that 6. This is the high digit in this equality cage. And the reason is if I make all of these green to make it the low one, as in the 4, with this being the high, I've created a 2 by 2 region. So to break that 2 by 2 region, I need at least another red that would make it a 5. So we know that this has to be the high digit. So this is 6 or 7, and this will be, well, without the 4, 1, 2, or 3, depending on the parity of this. This is already 2, that's not 1. You see, it's tricky. It is a tricky puzzle. Kind of wondering if I can use this 3, 6. You see, I think I can, because I can't make these 2 cells red. Well, for a few reasons. One, checkerboard. This has to be green. So from 3 and 6, this is far more likely to be the 3. Just depends on this color. But let's say I make this red for a second. That's neither 6 nor 3, and it has to be one of them. It's at 4. So I'm fairly sure this needs to be the green, for this to be 3, for this to be 6, which gives me a 7 in here, and therefore a 2 in here. These are my 2 greens, everything else is red. This has to be red because it's the diagonal. Remember, back to that 7. This has to be green. Green has to escape because obviously it's locked still, so all of these have to be green. And we'll figure out what that means in a moment. This needs to be 4. You can see 4 cells. Right, this one, well, it's not 1, so it needs to see a second red. That's red. I think we can keep using that again. That's already at 2. It needs to see at least 3, if not 4. 4 is a problem. 4 means that all of these are in red, and I've isolated the green. So this has to be 3. That continues to be the escape of green. That can't be a 2 by 2. That is green again. Almost tempted to think about Sudoku at the moment because we made so much progress with coloring, but not a huge amount with numbers. How are we doing for time? Not bad, 11 minutes. That 4, for example, gives me an 8 because it can't be a 2. Where does 4 go in box 1? That's a 4. This is a 7, 9 pair. This is either seeing 1 or 2. And this is lovely with the 2, 3 in here. It actually helps me with my yin and yang. If this is a 1, this would need to be a 2 where it would conflict in the column. So that has to be a 2, and it can't go to a 3. It has to go back down to a 1. That needs to be red to honor that 2, basically, in the diamond. This needs to continue. This is seeing 1, 2, 3 greens. It's seeing actually more because that has to be green. I can't isolate this cell. And I actually am tempted to say that this is it. This is a 4. Because you see, the maximum it can see is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it can see 6. Pardon me, it's seeing already 5. So it has to see 6 because we can't have a 5 in an equality cage. And therefore, this is also green. This has to be a low odd digit. It is a maximum of 1 or 3. I mean, 1 is looking pretty likely, but I don't know what's going on this side just yet. So can't commit to that. And actually fairly likely it is a 3 because if that's a 1, it means all of these is a sea of green. And that would include a 2 by 2, a 2 by 2, etc. So that is certainly a 3. This is at least a 4. But it isn't. It's got to be higher. It's 5 or 6, depending on how many of these are red. That's 5 or 6. That's a 4, classic Sudoku. This 3 in here. Ouch. Did I make a mistake? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's not a diamond. Doesn't matter. Yeah. For a second there, I was thinking, wow, this is not going to come up to 6, but given how many greens it sees, but it doesn't matter. There is no diamond in here. So I can put any high even digits. It's not a 6, it's an 8. These cells now are 5 and 9, I'm going to say. It's actually making me think about this cell. So this is either 7 or 5. Now, this 6 in general, because it's already surrounded, it needs to escape. This needs to be red so that it's connected to the rest of the world. Now, if this is 7, I have a problem because it means that all of these are green. And not only have I broken the 6, but I've also isolated this into an island. So this has to be a 5. Bounces back gives us a 9. Bounces in here gives us a 5. No 5s here. This is 5, 7, 9. So that's not a 5. That's a 7, 9 pair. We've got 2 digits in here, 1 and 3. That 3 gives me an order 3. 1 gives me another 2. We already knew it was a 2 because we extended the green, but I don't actually have... No, I have to continue the red because that's a 2. But this red can actually be isolated because, it is still connected through the rest, in here to the rest of the reds. So nothing stops me from isolating it there. These cells are 6 and 8, and that 6 gives me an order. That's a 6. No, not what I meant. That's a 6. That's an 8. That's a 5, 7, 9 triplet. It's a very well constructed puzzle. I mean, I don't even know how you go about constructing a puzzle such as Yin and Yang, where you constantly have just enough clues to continue the colors. Never enough really to sort of just overwhelmingly fill it all in very quickly. So I know that I have at least one red. No, I have 2 reds based on the fact that this is a 3. What happens if I do something silly like that? That's fine. I don't need to pick any of them. That's the challenge. 1, 2, 3, 4. One of these is red, and then the second one is in here. I'm just not seeing how I can use this. Black Kropki dot maybe? Yeah, black Kropki dot, because we've got 3, 6 eliminating all of these, but this cell is not 4 or 8. It's quite restricted. It's 1 or 2. And this is 1, 2, or 4. Whichever one is connecting these, whether it's 1 or 2 or 2 or 4, it has a 2, and it kind of lines up with the classic Sudoku. And in fact, it is, because we've got 2 in here. That, as in, that can't be a 2. Yeah, still not quite enough. Kind of need to think about this. So I've already got 5. So one of these is green, and I just can't figure out which one it is. Both seem fine to me. Maybe some classic Sudoku for a bit. See if I can narrow down options. I think because really what I need is some of these diamonds to have pencil marks for me to try and figure out what is going on with the colors. So we've made enough progress, or I'm declaring that we've made enough progress. Let's take a look at what else we can do. Which one is easiest? None of them are easy. That's a 2. Just kind of classic Sudoku. We need a 4 on this line. It's got to be in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We need 8 and 9. Not great. Okay. One of these is 4 anyway. We need another 5, 6 in here. And it's not this cell. So we need an 8, 9. We need a 5, 6 and a 1. 1 is not here. 1 is not there. That's the 1. That's not the 5, 6. That's the 8, 9. That's the second 5, 6. Looking at the rows for a second. I need a 3 in here. I need a 3 and a 5 actually because of this 5 and these 3s. That 5 gives me an order. That's a 5. That's a 3. I know that these are not 6 and 9. 9 and something. 1 and 9. I need another 8, 9. A 4 and a 7. You can see the 7 is not here. The 7 is definitely there. In here, 1, 2, 3, I need 4, I need a 6, which can only be in there. The 7, because this is a 7, that is just written in, it's here, 7. I need an 8 and a 4, so 4, 8. And this is, I did say 4 with a 8, 9, so that's not a 9, that's another 4, 8. And in this case, it's a 7 as well. It'd be really helpful if this is a 4, but I don't know how to complete that. You see, this diamond is pretty high. It's not 1, 2, or 3. So this is at least a 4. And I think that makes it a red. Because the maximum, if this is green, that it can be is all of these being painted red. And I can't be 1, 2, or 3. So being the fact that it's a 4, I'm going to say this is red. At least a 4, mind you. Which means that of these 5 cells, 4 of them have to be green. I don't know which one it is, because whichever one it is, that is a red. And in fact, it's got to be a 4. Reason I'm saying it's got to be a 4, because if it's 5, I would fully isolate that cell, and that doesn't work, and I've got a 5, 6 pair in here anyway. So none of these are 4. I'm going to say this has to be green then as a result, because one of these is his escape, not a second. And clearly not the diagonal, they're not considered connected. Now, if I make this my escape, essentially if I make it something like this, I would have to connect it in here, and then I've isolated this green. So I'm fairly sure this can't be my only escape for this red. And therefore this is my escape for this 4 that's isolated. Can't be a 2 by 2, this is red. And green continues. Not that's helped at all in terms of actually solving the Sudoku at all. Ouch. Yeah, I really need to think about this 5. So I think we need to use the same isolation principle. One of these, the challenge is one of these is green, one of these is red. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. So whichever one of these is red, that could be my escape. I don't actually need to make any of these red. Let's think about what this is. It's not 3, 4, 5, or 6. So 1 and 2 work. And the alternative would be 7, 8, 9 with an 8. Now let's think about the implications of that for a second, because I'm looking at the rest of this grid and I'm thinking it's actually quite restricted. I mean, here it is. The 2 is not there. Where is the 2 in column 5? It's got to be in here. I can't have 3 as a neighbor. It is, in fact, a 1, 2 pair. And the rest of it now is 6, 7, 8, 9. That's got to be a 7 because I need it in the column. This is 6, 8, 9. That's not an 8. This is now 3. No, not 3. It's just 7, 8, 9. That gives me a 4 in here, an 8 there, a 9 here, an 8. This is 6 and 9. We need 1 and 3, I'm going to say. Can't disambiguate them yet. That's not a 4, that's a 6-8 pair. That's a 6-9 pair looking at this cell. That's an 8. I made a mistake in here. That was meant to be the 6, surely. Yeah. And a 4. 7, 8, 9. That's not an 8. That's as far as I could take it for now. 1, 9 pair. What is that? That needs to add up to 10. That's a 6. That's a 5. That's a 6. That I've already completed that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reds. That was fine. And the 3 reds. So I've already logicked my way out of that one. That 4 is done. So this is okay. Sleuth. This 7, 9. That's a 9. That's a 1. That's a 9. That's a 7. None of these are 7 anymore. What else do we have? We have a third 5, 7, 9. And notice the 7 9s are lining up. We only have a 5 in here. That's not a 5. That's the 5. No, that can't be right. It looks right, because the 7 9s are in there. And I need, oh, hang on, that could be a 9. That's the conclusion. Looks like it's time for a quick walk for our dogs. I'm going to hit the pause button and I'll be right back. Fingers crossed I'll remember where I was. Right, back again. So we were... Sorry, I didn't finish the sentence. 7 9s looking at a 6 9. That's a 6. That's a 9. So in here we have a second 1 3 with, I'm going to say a 5, and that can't be the 5. That's the 5. That gives me in here a 1 because it's not a 3. 1, sorry, 3, 1. None of these are 8. This is a 4 9 pair. That 9 gives me an order. That's a 4. That's a 9. That 1 is doing a lot of work. That's a 2. That's a 4. That's a 1. That's a 2. We have a second. No, I'm going to stop saying that. We need a 1 in here, which can only be in there. Then we have essentially 5, 7, 8, or 9. It is essentially 5, 7, or 8. It's not a 7 or a 5. It's just an 8, a 9, a 7, and a 5. That's looking better. That's a 9. That's a 7. That's a 9. That's an 8. Right. We need... So one thing I'm going to do probably is stop solving in a second. That's a 6, just so that I can actually finish coloring, because I've got all the digits that I need, I think, with that 4 and that 6. So technically, I should be able to color from here. Let's think about this. So, obvious thing that I just completely ignored. This is a red, which means it's got to be connected to the rest of the red on the rim. Can't have a mixture of colors. That gives me another green in here. Clearly, one of these two, if not both of them, are green. And I'm thinking this has to be green because how am I going to get to 6 of greens? And the answer is impossible. I need to use these 4 reds plus another 2 reds between these two. So this is definitely green. This sort of works either way. Essentially, I could make it green, and therefore I'm counting reds. I have 3 reds plus a 4th one in here. Or I could make it red, and I have 3 greens and the 4th one in here. So this is like deliberately, I don't know if it's deliberate, but you know, it's a mix. I get the feeling the 6 is there to help us disambiguate. So let's just think about options. We know one of these is green, one of these is red. Then we know one of these is green, one of these is red, because essentially I'm going to have 3 greens Both of these are green? How does that work? Yeah, red is connected. Because I need 5 greens. I've got 1, 2, plus only one more of these. So that's 3. That's 4 and 5. That has to be red. Otherwise, it'll be a 4 by 4. That's 5 greens. That's not right. What am I doing wrong in that logic? Oh yeah, I've got 5 greens. I've got one of these. So that's 1, 2. Yeah, of course, I've got the 6. So that could be green too, and therefore only one of these, rather than both of them. I feel like I'm overcomplicating this. If this is green, that's red. And then not to isolate this green, both of these would be green. And therefore both of these have to be red. And then I've isolated it. Let me just show you what I mean. Essentially, if this is green, we know that this is red. We have this section here that still can't be isolated. This would have to be green. Now, how do I get to 6 reds when I have 1, 2, 3, 4? Both of these would be red, and then I've isolated this green. So that can't be the correct path. That has to be red. This has to be green. That green can't be isolated. It continues. Can't create a 2 by 2. That's got to be green. That's 5 reds. Now, I need a 5th. And it's one of these two. Let's think about the 5 for a second. I've already got 5 greens. That's got to be red. That's got to be green. That's the correct answer now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's correct. Right. On to Sudoku again. We need a 3 in here. That's the 3. That's the 5. And if I've not made any mistakes, that's the 7 for the finish. Beautiful puzzle, gUBBLOR. Glad to be back, taking another stab at Ying and Yang. And just like incredible how well it's woven into the equality cages. Just having these handful of diamonds that tell you the number of neighboring cells, and the restriction that you end up having around 6s and 7s consistently throughout. You can see like almost none of the equality cages except for this one, where there wasn't a diamond that was an 8. Just a phenomenal puzzle. So hope that you guys enjoyed the puzzle as much as I have, and the video as well. It was a reasonably smooth solve. And see you back for the next one. You know, I would say check out more of the equality cages. Ying and Yang, there's only one other one that if you haven't tried, I'll certainly leave a link to it as well after this video. Right, bye-bye for now.